Join us as we enter the special world of Sports Afield, the next best thing to being outdoors. Your hosts for Sports Afield are three special men: Grits Gresham, Homer Circle, and Jerry Geppetta, men who have dedicated their lives to the outdoors. Sports Afield is brought to you in part by Winchester, more than a gun, an American legend. By Shakespeare, fishing as a name, Shakespeare. By Scout, anything less is just a car. By Stearns, life vests and jackets. Ask for the vest with the crest. By Schrade, handcrafters of Uncle Henry and old-timer knives since 1904. And by your Kmart Sports Center, with quality brand names at Kmart prices.
Hi, I'm Grits Gresham. Today on Sports Afield, we visit Glacier National Park and its eagles, and I call a big bull elk within camera range.
Inspiring of all wildlife is the bald eagle. It's a great bird, our national symbol. But usually, you know, eagles have to be viewed from great distances. But there is one place where you can see more eagles in a single day, in a single tree, than most people will see in an entire lifetime. That place is Glacier National Park in northwestern Montana on the U.S.-Canadian border. It's a wilderness region in the Rocky Mountains, and it's only one of two spots remaining in the lower United States where grizzly bears still roam free. The Continental Divide runs through Glacier Park, a truly rugged, remote area. From many thousands of miles, the eagles come. From British Columbia, Alberta, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, and Alaska, the geography of this region funnels the great birds south in the fall. They're driven down here by winter winds which come early to the far north. They know their food supply, mostly fish, will be sealed off soon by winter's ice. Beside the mountainous region and the wind currents found here in Glacier, there is another important attraction. This is the kokanee salmon. Eagles find a ready supply of migrating salmon which move up McDonald Creek. That's about a 60-mile run from Flathead Lake. The area and the availability of food are a magnet for the eagles, which eventually will have to move on farther south from here. From Glacier in October and November, they may fly as far south as Mexico and Central America by December and January. Just as the eagles come from thousands of miles, so do the people of all ages. They're here to see the magnificent birds close up from a bridge over McDonald Creek. On a fall weekend, as many as 2,000 visitors will come to this spot to admire the birds.
You see? Yeah. On top of that green tree. I can see them. I can see them. Come here. Oh, wow. Look at them. These are huge. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that grossing thing. Get your camera out. Oh, there it is. There it is. Look at that big one in those. There's one flying. I know. Yeah, but he didn't come close. Oh, you get him. Man, he can get him. You can see his light. Yeah, look, here comes one. God, I missed him. They're flying back and forth.
There are two subspecies of bald eagles, simply known as the southern race, which is on the endangered species list, and the northern race, which is slightly larger and which includes those eagles found here in Glacier. Adult plumage, with white head and tail and yellow beak and talons, comes after 7 years of age. Immature eagles differ in color from their full-grown adults in that they lack the white feathering. Immatures are sometimes confused with golden eagles. These are considered juveniles up to around age 7. They are estimated to live 25 to 30 years in the wild. Our Sports Afield camera crew journeyed to Glacier Park to document the peak fall migration of eagles. The birds here at this time in November represent 15 to 20% of all the eagles found in the lower 48 states. Cameraman Scott Ransom and his associates are prepared for all sorts of weather, which is quickly changeable in the late fall, from sunshine and blue skies to snow and overcast in the clicking of a camera. But luck is with us, as the birds are really on the move, even with this snowy weather. News reports of bigger eagle flights prove encouraging, with more and more birds showing up. There are high hopes that a record eagle count will be recorded at this time. Eagle watching and photographing is best early in the morning as the birds move into the McDonald Creek area about a half an hour before sunrise. A mature eagle will weigh 12.5 pounds, with females slightly larger than their mates. The general health of the North American eagle population seems to be on the upswing since the banning of DDT and the curtailment of use of other dangerous and damaging chemical poisons. That's the story today. Next, we'll accompany biologists and eagle census takers to get a more accurate picture of the Glacier Park eagle population. And counted in this picturesque area since the mid-1930s. Only in more recent times have the census takers operated in a careful, systematic fashion. Today, our observers will make a silent canoe float trip starting on McDonald Lake. They will float a 7-mile stretch of McDonald Creek. It's the prime gathering area for eagles. Their task is to observe and record the eagles that might decide to fly back upstream or remain on the shoreline or perch in nearby trees. Making the survey trip are Dave Shea in the bow and Dr. Riley McClellan of the University of Montana. Eagles that move out ahead of the team and on downstream are recorded by other spotters at a bridge site. Research associate Harriet Allen heads a squad of eagle counters at the bridge. This party is to record only those eagles which fly out ahead of the canoe team.
Here it is, 2, 3 here, 2 over there. You could hear it 2 on the computer.
Okay, got it.
One more mature.
A park ranger tries to answer questions of another group of visiting school children and help keep them quiet so they don't frighten off the birds. Our canoe counters pull into the bridge site to compare notes with Miss Allen's team, and they all have good news.
It was a very good count today. We have had trouble with birds soaring because of high winds, earlier counts, but no wind today, so birds stayed down generally, other than flying in front of the canoe, so it should be a fairly accurate count. You saw an eagle count that we run. This is the thing we run each week now while they're here in order to get an idea of exactly how many eagles are along the creek. These bald eagles don't live here year-round, as you probably know. They probably nest in Canada, and they're on their way south now to spend the winter someplace where they can find food. Where they nest and feed on food, those areas probably freeze over this time of year, so they don't have any good food source. They're stopping here because there are a lot of kokanee salmon that are dying, and when those fish disappear, then they'll move on south even farther to winter. So by the 1st of January, there won't be very many eagles here at all.
Part of the documentation needed for our Glacier Park eagle story is the story of the kokanee salmon. To accomplish this, our Sports Afield camera crew uses an underwater camera in the icy water. It is triggered by a long release cable stretching to the shore, where the camera operator's presence will not spook fish. Kokanee are a dwarf landlocked relative of the ocean-going Pacific coast species. The salmon were first stocked in Flathead Lake in 1916. As they multiplied and began making seasonal spawning runs to this region, they drew in more and more eagles. An average eagle will consume as many as 6 kokanee salmon each day. Glacier Park resident manager Dan Taylor tells us more about it.
Yeah, it's rather dramatic, really. The salmon living in Flathead Lake, when they come to spawn, some rather dramatic physiologic changes take place. They change color, they change some physiologic features. The males, for example, have a very pronounced humpish profile in their back, and the jaw extends, a very protruded snout on them, grow almost teeth-like features on them. Toward the very end, just before they go belly up, as they say, they contract fungi on their scales, and body tissues begin to deteriorate very rapidly. And within a week or so of spawning, the fish die.
Back at the counting site, big news is being made this day. As the tallies are all collected, Dr. McClellan and his crew discover that a record 509 eagles have been counted. It surpasses the mark of 444 eagles of the previous year. Scientists feel that possibly we have turned the critical corner, and that these rare and beautiful birds are not the vanishing Americans we thought they once were. The eagles and Glacier Park work a certain kind of magic on a visitor. For example, a New York natural science teacher came here just for a visit and decided to take a year's leave from his life and work back east to remain in the park. Jeff Sanders says he likes a park where wildlife comes first.
Well, one of the great virtues of Glacier Park is that they're interested in the animals first and the people second, and combine that with the virtue of patience. Wildlife viewing in the park is a great attribute here. I've seen some deer come down to the creek early in the morning, so I come out 3 or 4 times a week. It's such an adventure to me. Seeing these eagles, to me, is, well, it borders on patriotism for one, and I didn't think I had. It's just nice seeing a national bird by the hundreds.
And one of the most interesting things to watch are the eagles who can't catch fish by flying down, but in fact stand in the stream and wait for a slow fish to come by and pounce on it. Then oftentimes another immature eagle will come by and start to fight with them. And they jump up as if they're electrical shock through their feet. Another thing I really like to watch are the eagles just taking off out of the trees and just flying so gracefully.
Within a few hours, you can see the whole gamut of eagles feeding, fighting, flying, soaring, and it's just a beautiful sight to see them. And that's what the park does for me. It's such a beautiful variety of rocks and water and ice and wildlife. It's a great resource for the American people.
And we all own it. Truly, a place we can see more eagles in a single day than in a lifetime anywhere else. Glacier National Park.
Park. The time is autumn. The crowds of summer visitors, more than 2 million each year, now are gone. But in many ways, autumn is the busiest of Yellowstone's seasons. The animals for which the park is famous suddenly become more active, more visible. With the change of weather, many species of wildlife start their moves to warmer climates or lower elevations. I've come here myself to see a special scene in this great natural drama. It's a cold, clear morning, typical of autumn in the Rockies. The sun is still low, and we move quietly through a dimly lit forest of lodgepole pine. With me is Norm Strung, an outdoor writer who lives in nearby Montana and who knows this country well. This is what we're hoping to find. A group of the handsome animals called wapiti by the Indians